This time on Film Ranker, we are taking a look at James Bond. With number 25 well on its way, it seemed like a good time to go right back to where it all began and look at the first to really take on the role, Sean Connery. So let's count down all 7 Connery Bonds from worst to best. Number 7, Never Say Never Again. You knew it was going to be at the bottom, and you already know why. Never Say Never Again is only kind of a Bond film. It was made by a different production company and stems from a rights battle over the Thunderball script. Much like the film, the background is very messy, and I can't really be bothered to give it my full attention. In the end, nobody really wanted a way too old at that point Sean Connery playing a knockoff Bond in a rewrite of Thunderball. However, Max von Sydow is pretty great. Number 6, You Only Live Twice. This one is written by famous children's author Roald Dahl, who took the gig because he was friends with Fleming. Dahl himself doesn't rate the film that highly. He apparently didn't like the original book much either and had to kind of make up all of the core elements from scratch. Despite all of that, there is some interesting stuff in this one, like the whole thing basically taking place in one country, and it featuring the first face-to-face with Ernst Stavros Blofeld. There's also a crazy rocket cave with Jetsons-style monorail pods. But there is a lot of downtime, particularly when Bond is getting fake married and learning the finer points of Japanese culture as part of a plan that turns out to basically just involve swimming into a cave. Number 5, Thunderball. Thunderball is all about the technology. It starts with a jetpack and ends with oodles of scuba diving fights. I cannot overstate how many scuba diving fights. We also have planes and missiles and cars with gadgets and so much more. And maybe those scuba diving fights haven't totally stood the test of time, but at the time, the underwater filming was legitimately cutting edge and pretty rad. Also, the scene with the sharks is a classic for a reason. Domino and Largo are also pretty fun, and some great examples of classic Bond voice dubbing. Number 4, Diamonds Are Forever. Connery's first return to the role after a one-picture hiatus. He somehow ages a decade in those 4 years, but he's still Connery, which means he's still very cool. While the main plot with its disguised Blofeld and casinos and oil pipelines is hit and miss, what makes this film are the supporting characters. Plenty O'Toole, Tiffany Case, weird millionaire Willard Wright, Bambi and Thumper, and most of all, Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, who are 2 of the most fascinatingly creepy characters in any movie ever. Also, this one has that crazy moonlander chase that includes astronauts who commit to their moonwalking to an amazing degree. It might be one of the sillier Bonds, but it's still pretty entertaining. Number 3, From Russia with Love. The second James Bond film has more budget, more villains, more locations, and a lot more trains. We get Spectre agents number 3 and number 5. We get Ali Karim Bey, who is pretty rad in a John Rhys Davies and Indiana Jones kind of way. Red Grant is super fun as a kind of anti-Bond. Tatiana is great as a legit love interest with a dark side. It's all pretty great. There's just maybe a smidge too much of it. By the time you get to Klebb in the hotel room, it feels very anticlimactic. Number 2, Dr. No. When a movie spawns 24 sequels, it is pretty hard to knock it. Dr. No sets up the franchise with a bang. Yes, the dragon is ridiculous, and yes, it wraps up a bit too quickly, but how amazing is that private island and the weird doctor himself who takes the idea of hot and cold to a whole other insane level. Also, Ursula Anders sets a very high bar for all of the Bond girls that followed, and Lois Maxwell is a joy to watch as Moneypenny. But of course, the whole thing wouldn't be possible without Connery, who figures out exactly how to play the coolest secret agent in the world on his very first go out. Number 1, Goldfinger. There are a few things that make Bond villains fantastic: an absurd plan, a cool tech-filled lair, some amazing henchpeople, and a weird overconfidence that ends up being their undoing. Goldfinger has every single one of these things in spades. The plan to irradiate the gold in Fort Knox is amazingly insane. His lair is very cool. Oddjob and Pussy Galore are obviously amazing. And when Bond keeps escaping, Goldfinger just invites him along for the ride. Plus, this one has the best theme song of any Bond movie and the most memorable line. If I was trying to win someone over to the absurd amazingness of James Bond, this is the movie I would show them. And that's it. Let me know in the comments which of Connery's Bond films are your favorites. Also, which Bond should I look at next? Roger Moore? Maybe Pierce Brosnan? And please like